everybody, good evening. It's Wednesday, it's 6:30, and we all know what that means. It's time for Serenity Night Live. Welcome everybody. After the chaos of last week's show, I'm finally formatted a bit more. It was just last week, it was just completely threw me off. It was my birthday and things were just all over the place. So what are we going to be talking about today? This is the only place, as you know, where emotional vulnerability meets psychological clapbacks. I'm the clapback, by the way. I'm your host, Shama, life coach, chaos coordinator, and also living proof that being emotionally intense like I am doesn't mean you have to have emotionally unavailable partners. Hi, Amber. Thank you for joining me on my show. We're going to be talking about narcissism. What is narcissism in a relationship? So tonight we're going to do a deep dive into the ADHD and narcissistic entanglement. Now, I might be wrong, but a lot of my clients and a lot of people that I know that have ADHD are complete empaths, me included. Surprising as you might think that is, I am actually quite an empath. I do care. This is where your dopamine will meet disaster and trauma bonds feel like soulmates. So let's grab your journal, grab your boundaries, possibly your therapist after this, and let's get into it. Remember, if you want to join this live show, you are more than welcome to join. I have my guest, Brandon. First things first, actually, before I say anything, correction corner. I misspelt his name and I said it wrong. It's not Brendan from Clear Minds, it's Brandon from Clear Minds. So Brandon, I'm so sorry. Please come on my show. Please do not boycott me just because I got that completely wrong. So I hope that sorts that out. It's Brandon, everybody, not Brendan, like I said it. But even then, when I did it on the transcription, when I was apologizing for getting the name wrong, it still spelt it the same way, so maybe my pronunciation didn't come across. But anyway, it is what it is. Like I said, request to join on Instagram. Please feel free to join us when we're going to be talking about these things. However, you can keep your camera on, you can keep your camera off. It's entirely up to you, but you've got to be ready to speak, okay? We are inviting our viewers to bring about a new accountability challenge. Actually, you know what, talking about accountability, I just want to quickly drop a note about how wonderful the Serenity 30-day transformation challenge is really kicking off. I am so happy. Guys, this is a phenomenal service. If you ever feel that you need to be a part of coaching, but you don't want the coach, you just want to do the task and get it done, this is the service for you. Message me, DM me if you want to know more. I have my and hopefully he will join us. Hello. Nice
Hi,
to
Serenity.
see you.
How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. I just want to do a brief introduction that I wrote, and this time I did a little bit of a caveat as well. I said I did a bit of a correction corner. I was like, it's not Brendan, it's Brandon. I can't believe I got that completely wrong. So I'd like to introduce my lovely guest, a content creator and educator whose work focuses on mental health, narcissistic abuse recovery, and building emotional intelligence. His insights into trauma bonding and narcissistic cycles and healing have helped thousands understand the patterns that many struggle to name. And I'm so thrilled to have him on because, as he probably recognizes my face, I'm the one who keeps messaging her, what about narcissism in this case? What about narcissism? Am I a narcissist? So let's get into the basics first. I just want to know, in your mind, what is narcissism? You just enjoy your coffee, love.
Yeah, sorry,
That's all right.
So narcissism it's obviously it's very much a buzzword at the moment. A lot of people are talking about it, and generally it comes from it's when someone has a deep sense of control. When someone wants a deep sense of control over someone, narcissists are often very manipulative in order to get what they want. they'll usually use someone for their own gain. They're someone that doesn't really have empathy. So often they'll prey on people that are very empathetic, which I think we'll go on to in a little bit. Obviously, I think we talk a little bit about people with ADHD and stuff, which makes them, very typical potential victims of narcissists. And they're people that will often keep people for their own gain, really. So they're often very, very highly skilled manipulators. That's one of the sort of key things that I found. And often it comes out in a very abusive way.
Yeah. I mean, my question is going to be completely off the piece, but is it possible to have people who have narcissistic tendencies but are good people?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously it depends who they're good to as well. I mean, there's a lot of narcissists that would probably have best friends that wouldn't even know they're a narcissist. I think so yeah, they'd be a good person to their friends.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, they could be good people. I think it depends on, they're generally not good to the person that will be their victim. That would be the thing, I'd say that in general. The narcissist, someone that's a narcissist might have a good job. They might be, they might have a good profession. I won't name professions or anything, but they might help people. They might do something great, which means to everyone they're a good person. But to their wife or their husband at home, they're not a good person. So I think it's a tough one.
Yeah, that's really hard to tell because, sometimes, because, the reason why I'm asking is because for a longest of time, I thought that I may have narcissistic tendencies because of the way that I was treated. Well, actually, by the way I treated my children, because I was wanting this perfect marriage and this perfect kids and these perfect everything. And when they weren't conforming to that idea of perfection, it wasn't
You
pretty.
felt like it was.
Yeah, and so that's why I asked you that question, like, can somebody like that be deemed as a narcissist? And even you were like a little bit stumped by that, because it was like, where the hell did that question come from? But now you know why. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to know. So I wanted to know, am I a narcissist? And you said no, because you're so self-aware of your own reason and the fact that you wanted to heal from that. Narcissists don't want to heal. They think that they're perfect, apparently.
Exactly.
Am I right? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
so, okay.
No, that's spot on.
All right, everybody, I am not a narcissist, so don't call me one, okay? Because I know that term gets bandied around, when they talk about people that they don't like. Oh, that person's such a narcissist. So can I ask, where has your information and your expertise actually come from?
Yeah, of course. So I've probably been aware of the situations I've been in over the past I'd say about 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit longer.
Okay.
So I was in there's some parts that I share, some parts that I don't. I can tell you about it when we're not live another time.
Feel free to tell me about that.
But one of the bits that I do share is I was in a very narcissistic relationship when I was younger, before my wife. And at the time, I had no idea about it. I was basically like a lot of the people that message me today. I didn't know anything about it. I ended up leaving the relationship very hurt and in a position where I had very low self-worth, even though I was, healthy. I did a lot of, positive things and stuff, but I didn't feel very good about myself for many years. And it wasn't until I'd say maybe 6 or 7 years ago that I started to be aware of what I actually went through. And that obviously really helped with where I am today. And what happened, one of the biggest ways I actually sort of really started to learn was when I founded Clear Minds. So obviously Clear Minds is my app, mine and the other co-founder. I'm the founder, and I got my friend Alice as the other co-founder. We founded it about 5 years ago, and we basically, obviously, we have multiple therapists that work for us. So obviously I spend a lot of time speaking with them, and obviously understood myself a lot more through that. So that's where I went. I went from a place of confused, like many people are, having my own sort of self-esteem and low self-worth issues that I dealt with for a long time. Not, always thinking it was me that did something wrong.
Yeah.
And then obviously I found my wife, and it was a very different situation with her, and we've been together now for 15 years. But I went through that. Yeah, and it was obviously at that stage when I really became aware of everything, that I started to sort of realize what I went through. And we've done loads of stuff with Clear Minds. It
Yeah.
wasn't until basically me and my partner Alistair, we decided that we were going to go online with the business ourselves rather than just be like behind the scenes in the business.
Yeah,
And we
sure.
both decided, we both, Alistair actually has ADHD.
Oh,
He's,
that's
he's
good.
diagnosed with ADHD. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting. And so we both basically decide, right, we're going to go online, and we didn't want to just do something, random or something that wasn't helpful and educational to people. We wanted to do something meaningful. So he has a background in addiction, which I think obviously
Okay.
was highly related to his sort of late diagnosis of ADHD. There
Yeah.
was a lot of things related to that,
Yeah.
which is more for him to talk about. But obviously he's on Instagram, he talks about it, so I'm all right. That's
Oh,
what I'm all right
good.
to say
Might
about it.
have him on there
Yeah.
when I want to talk
Well,
about addiction.
yeah, well, yeah. His name's Alistair Clear Minds. Mine's Brandon Clear Minds. His is Alistair Clear Minds, and basically, yeah, we decided to make our accounts. And I think you're spinning. Are you still
Hey,
there?
I'm
Yeah,
back.
you're
I'm
still
back.
there. There we go. So we decided that we wanted to do something meaningful,
Yeah.
and I decided to just think, well, I'm gonna sort of put on there things that are meaningful to me, and it was what I went through. And it turns out, I expected to really get many followers. It turns out a lot of people are going through similar sort of things.
Yes.
And I started the account in November. I first posted in December near Christmas,
Amazing.
and it's just obviously it's gone from there. And Alistair's the same. He started then as well, and he's obviously has been quite popular as well in that sort of area.
So it goes to show how relevant now and how people are beginning to understand what it means to be in a relationship with a narcissist. And that's down to you
Yeah.
guys. And because you really highlighted a few things to me as well when I was watching. That's why I became so incredibly engrossed in your thing, because everything, and I used to read everything when you said read the captions or read the captions.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm reading those captions because for me, I just needed to know. I'm absolutely fascinated by the idea of narcissism. Maybe that's a narcissistic quality as well, being obsessed with narcissism, because maybe I don't want to be one, or maybe I don't want to be with one. I don't know what the case is, but I'm just absolutely fascinated by this topic about the idea of somebody could deem themselves so perfect that they're just not willing to see anybody else's point of view or see. I have had experiences with narcissists. Unfortunately, I can't mention their names and I can't mention who they are, but they know who they are. They know who they are, and they know how much I don't like them. That much is obvious. I can say that much. So let me ask you something. What is it about us with ADHD, or even maybe not with ADHD, but mostly the empaths? What is it about the empaths that attract that narcissistic quality? It can't be just a simple case of fixer-upping.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously when we're talking about people with ADHD, it's not something I massively have a background in, but I can sort of have a bit of an idea of what I think what it would
By all
be. So
means.
obviously, people with ADHD generally, they're very empathetic. They often, they're often people pleasers, and a lot of that comes from realistically, they've always sort of sometimes either felt that people feel they're too much or they're not enough, so they want to people please. That's something that often comes from that. They also, because they're people pleasers, they often have like quite poor boundaries. So these are all basically all these sort of traits are like bait for a narcissist, because they're something that people obviously they're sort of qualities that what they'll look for in someone. So obviously, and then if I'm going on stereotypical things of like when we talk about ADHD people that are, hyper focus on certain things, I guess when someone with ADHD starts a relationship, it becomes quite a focus of theirs, which I mean that's exactly what a narcissist wants, is all the focus on them, the person to be obsessed with them, it to be a very sort of center of their life at that moment. And that's obviously quite a trait, or a sort of known trait of people with ADHD, maybe not everyone, but some people with ADHD hyper focus on certain things. And that's going to be that. And then there's obviously the fact that, a lot of people with ADHD, do have fear of rejection because of everything they've been through. They've often been misunderstood, especially in schools and stuff, which we know about. Obviously, how important that is when they're children. They've been misunderstood throughout their lives, and then they find this person that's like, oh my gosh, you're the, they're like, you're the perfect storm, because,
Yeah.
they see this person, and they obviously get into this cycle where they get love bombed and things like that. And then all of a sudden they feel seen and heard
Yeah.
and felt.
Oh my God, it sounds so familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess someone potentially with hyper fixation, hyper focus on something, they're like, okay, this person's absolutely perfect. They're like dive straight in. The narcissist will see that, they'll love bomb them, they'll get them totally besotted with them, and then obviously at a later date they'll start to withdraw that love, and then obviously again, someone with ADHD is going to be thinking about what it is
Like
they've done
why?
wrong, things
Yeah.
like
Is it
why have
me?
they done that?
Oh my
Yeah, and
God. Yeah.
it's not their fault. It's not their fault at all. And then obviously at that time they'll probably come back and start love bombing them again, and they sort of get a taste of it. And again, if we're talking about people with ADHD, people with ADHD in general, again, I'm not a specialist in ADHD or anything. I'm just sort of
Well,
like
for
going
somebody
off
who's
what
not
I've.
a specialist, Brandon, you've got it all spot on. I'm telling you now,
Well,
spot on. Everything is
thank
making me feel very seen. A bit too seen, I
thank
think.
you. That's good. Well, I think obviously people with ADHD often, from what I've heard, chase like dopamine and things. So again, if the person's been love bombed, it's going to be a really intense dopamine hit of being the center of that person's world. And then obviously you've got the downs of the dopamine not being there.
Yeah.
And then, the cycle starts again. So I think that's why people with empathetic people, but especially people with ADHD, with those sort of, let's say, I don't know what I'd call it, like qualities that they have, which are great to other people, in the wrong hands can be manipulated to be in an awful situation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like our empathy, our tendencies for impulsiveness, the need for, stimulation, constant, makes us great fodder for those people who are. And I guess then, so why do we miss these red flags?
Yeah, I think ADHD people. So I'd say that
Well, actually,
obviously
not just
people with,
ADHD. You don't really
yeah,
know who is until you're actually in the relationship. And let's talk about it from a general. I mean, I bring my ADHD
yeah.
into it anyway, but if we talk about it from a general point of view, why is it that they're so hidden in plain sight? And what are the red flags? Why are we missing them?
I think the love bombing at first is always hard to see. Obviously, the red flags. I think if we're talking to people, obviously you say in general, but if we go back to the ADHD side of things, obviously
Sure.
people with ADHD often live in are quite comfortable or used to being in quite a chaotic environment. So when they're in that environment, it maybe is not quite as obvious to them. And obviously going back to the people pleasing from in the past where they've maybe been misunderstood, they're used to sort of suppressing some of their own feelings a little bit. So it's the same for everyone. But if you sort of suppress your own feelings, maybe abandon some of your own boundaries just to please this person, to hopefully
Mm.
get the love that you're seeking,
Yeah.
you're just trying to keep the peace. And I think that's where I mean, when we talk about red flags, I think the main red flag's not always in the person and what they're doing. I think one of the main red flags is in yourself. And if you're abandoning your own boundaries with someone just to sort of try to keep the
Yes.
peace, or to try to get them to come to you, I think the main red flag's within, and it's a red flag that you really need to pick up on. If you're not being your authentic self, then that's the first red flag, so.
Oh my goodness. That's just crazy. Okay. So I'm still trying to process what you just said, because it's so accurate for some of the people that I've seen. Um, that can you hear my cat in the background? He's
Yeah,
howling.
I can hear
He's
you, Kat.
howling outside.
Yeah.
Somebody will let him in. It's fine. He doesn't have to disturb
Yeah.
us. So okay. So a lot of there's a lot of emotional neglect and abuse in a relationship as it
Yeah.
stands. Now,
Yeah.
what's the difference between emotional neglect and narcissistic abuse, if there is at all?
I think it's hard. Obviously, yeah. I think obviously both of them are the same, in as much of emotional neglect is part of narcissistic abuse. I think that the main thing that would differentiate would be if you're aware that you're doing it. If you're going to have to put a difference between the two, if you're aware of the emotional neglect, then obviously that could be quite a narcissistic trait. If you're not aware of it, then it's something that obviously is potentially, you know, I don't know what the person's situation might be, but if you're not aware of it, I think that's the main thing.
Yeah,
Usually
so
people that have narcissistic traits are aware of what they're doing.
okay. Yeah, I don't understand. I wouldn't never understand if somebody didn't understand, like they weren't aware that they were emotionally neglecting somebody. I'm sure that's because if somebody turns around and says, "Hey, I need you. You're not here. What's going on?" That are signs, right? That you're not doing your
Yep.
job in the relationship. But then in a narcissistic relationship, I imagine that the narcissist in the relationship would flip it, switch it, and turn it back on them and say, well, actually, it's nothing to do with me. It was you.
It's because you've been so busy, you've been this, you've been that, all different sort of things. So yeah, that's the gaslighting as well. So as well, sort of making you try believe, sort of check your own reality there to sort of make you feel like you're the problem, you know?
Yeah. And so I guess that creates a lot of dysregulation in a relationship as a whole in that regard as well. And from my point of view, an ADHD dysregulation, emotional dysregulation, is very high top on my list. So for me, it's emotional dysregulation, injustice sensitivity, and there is a third one that I feel very, very powerful about, but I can't remember it, which is typical. Never happens, right? So how does that play into what they call the term trauma bonding? Because I've heard that phrase being bandied around. What is trauma bonding?
Okay, so trauma bonding is generally related to when you get attached to someone and then later on. So for example, I'll try to give an example because it's always best to give an example. So let's say you start off in a relationship and everything's going great and you get together and you basically going through all these, you're going on nice holidays, you're doing nice things, and you build all these nice memories of someone.
Yeah.
And then they start to pull away and they start to obviously like emotionally neglect you, let's say.
Yeah.
This is an example. And one of the things that rather than just leaving, so what you could say is like, you're not giving me the attention I need and deserve as a partner. I'm leaving. Instead, you stay. And now, what's the reason you stay? The reason you stay is because you're trauma bonded to them, because you've got that feeling of like maybe they'll get better. It used to be so good. Maybe they'll be that person. You've got the bond to who they were and what they gave you. So you stay because of that. And then that's sort of one of the easiest ways that I find to explain it to people that can just get it straight away. It's basically a connection to like a relationship with someone based on things that are not there currently, and what's keeping you sort of seeing that person, whether it be romantic or even a family member.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm taking it all in. It's just so accurate the way you describe everything. It's like, I mean, you know, my husband's not a narcissist. He's not. I wouldn't deem him as a narcissist, but the whole idea of, you know, he played a lot of hot and cold because maybe that was the way he'd been brought up in a very hot and cold environment and just couldn't handle the fact that there's me all, here I am, I love you, come and give me a hug, blah, 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 and this, that. And so we're very chalk and cheese. And it's taken him 20 years to get used to the fact that there's someone here who likes him, regardless of everything that's been going on. And, you know, so, you know, some of the things that you said about, you know, the trauma bonding and, you know, sometimes he'd pull away maybe to test me to see whether I'd still stick around and stuff. And a lot of it is a South Asian cultural thing as well, because we get brought up to believe that no matter what happens, you stick together through thin and thin. It doesn't matter whether that person abuses you. It doesn't matter whether that person is doing whatever. That is how I was brought up. I'm not bringing up my children like that, thankfully, but we're probably the last generation, the Gen X generation, to actually take on that emotional trauma of being in a relationship and making it work and trying to make it work and trying to do things to make it work until you're absolutely exhausted and burnt out in a relationship. But still that person doesn't give anything back to kind of rejuvenate or revive it. And so you're stuck.
Yeah.
That's how I've seen so many relationships in my community pan out, which is why the narcissism side of things fascinates me, because we live in a very patriarchal society in like the South Asians. Is very much a man's world, and it's normally the man that plays the narcissism role in our culture. I've never have yet to see a woman play a narcissism role. I've not seen that, or maybe I just don't recognize it, but that's just something that I've noticed. So it just made me well up a little bit, because it's horrible to see it happening in real time as well. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I can
that's
imagine, and
amazing.
I can imagine. Obviously, again, I'm not an expert in obviously that cultural side of things, but I can imagine obviously the generational trauma that will come from that will
Yeah.
be, for example, like you say, if it's a man's world in that culture, and if that person, if that person sees their dad not, not being very nice to their mum because that's the way it was,
That's the
that's
way
what
it
he's
is.
learned.
Yeah.
That's his reality. That's how you treat your wife. That's how you treat women, and I think that's something that obviously, like you said, you say sort of our generation now, but obviously it stems from the generation before, and obviously you're breaking that sort of generational trauma now.
Yeah.
There,
I'm making
yeah,
sure she stands up for herself in any shape or form. If she feels that she's being disrespected, she speaks out. She doesn't keep it quiet or keep it internalized like we did, because
yeah,
keeping it internalized for us made life very, very difficult. And so I don't want that for her. Life is already as difficult as it is, Brandon. Like, the last thing I want is for her difficulty in relationships as well. I said to her, and I always say this to everybody, choose somebody that walks beside you, not behind you, not in front of you, not looking over your head constantly, somebody who just walks side by side and takes you on that journey. And if that person is a natural leader, they lead their people to success, not putting them down, not trying to, demoralize them or anything like that, or at least showing an interest in what they do. I think that's
yeah,
really, really important in relationships as it stands. Um,
yeah.
okay. Confusion with the feelings of anxiety can be misconstrued as love and excitement in some cases, particularly in my case. I don't know whether I'm anxious about something or I'm excited about something, or that kind of thing. Do you know anything about those feelings and those emotions that happen in a narcissistic relationship?
I mean, I don't go massively into. Obviously, I go into the healing of it, which obviously a
Yeah.
lot of people do feel. That's often a trauma response to feel like almost like your nervous system is like not regulated because you feel like you're walking on eggshells. There are a lot of different things like walking on eggshells all the time and different things around them. So that can obviously lead people to be very, some people have panic attacks, some people, a lot of anxiety, especially when like anxiety around their partner coming home or anxiety around certain situations and stuff. And that can be quite common. Also, after they leave the narcissist, they often find that it can take them quite a while to get back to themselves. I think when I speak to a lot of people, they do feel anxious, they do feel exhausted. A lot of people that are living with or around narcissists a lot, they feel that they have a lot of like brain fog, they feel exhausted, they often sometimes feel almost ill. And they often, one of the things they always say to me when I do calls with people is that, when they leave, or usually they're contemplating leaving or have just left, and they say that, I just want to be on my own now.
Mm,
They really, at that point, they really don't think about finding someone else.
yeah.
And that's because their nervous system's just starting to calm down and sort of they start to regulate themselves. Usually it finds once they get past that, they then are interested again.
That's so true, actually. Yeah. I think, yeah. I know loads of people that were in narcissistic relationships, and then when they got out of it, they decided, I would rather be on my own. I want to find myself again. I want to see who I am, because
Yeah,
I'm not that person I was before that relationship. I'm not that person during that relationship. So they've been through so many transformations in that time. It's difficult to identify and have that identity as to who they are. So, and that often takes a lot of time. So let's talk about the recovery for somebody who has been in a post-narcissistic relationship. How do we start to build that gut feeling again, that intuition, that self-trust? What's the best way?
Well, it's always going to be difficult. I think the best way to start is to have a good support system around you, because your friends are always going to be honest with you. They're always going to, you know, build you up and tell you, no, what you went through is not right. That's obviously the first thing, is you've got to have a support system around you, because otherwise, if you don't have anyone around you, you can often just continue to doubt yourself, because you've been sort of put in that position of feeling like it was your fault at times and things like that for a very long time. So I think step one is always to have a friend or a family member that you can confide in, that's a close family member. And then after that, you've got to do, I mean, a lot of people do stuff like journaling, affirmations, different things to sort of build up their own sort of like, basically building on, I'm trying to think, it's like they've got to name the abuse clearly. You know, they've got to say exactly where it is. You know, this is what happened to me. Sort of name the like basically rewrite the reality, because they've living in, you know, they've been gaslit all that time. That they've thought things were their fault. They've abandoned their own boundaries, because they've basically been constantly on edge around that person. So what they've got to do is they've got to firstly sort of be very aware of what they went through and understand what was right and wrong. And then the best thing to do that is to journal it. So one of the things that I often tell people to write, which can be quite a painful thing to write, but I often tell people, and they've found it very helpful, is to journal. Basically, is to write in your journal, what about my past relationship? What am I pretending not to know?
Yeah. And
when they actually are honest and write that down, it helps them understand what they've been through.
Yeah.
Because obviously they've sort of like put up with it for so long that. And that's something that's very helpful. So I think journaling is really helpful, because you're putting it on paper. Yeah. You're sort of accepting what happened, and that's the reality of where it is, rather than try to sort of brush it off. And the support system. You've got to rebuild trust with yourself, because you've not trusted your own instinct for a little while, and you're not going to trust other people either, because you're going to be so hurt and not ready to meet someone. So you need to really obviously work on yourself, self-esteem, self-worth.
Okay. I've written that down, by the way, about journaling, about pretending what what you not to know. I absolutely love that, because what you're doing then is saying, okay, whatever's happened has happened. You've now got yourself a blank space to kind of now fill it with the things that you want to know, and you want to know about yourself. And hopefully that should carve out a nice little future for you, where you have now the knowledge about yourself and what you want in your life and the kind of people that you want to have around you. So in some respects, it's almost like a self-reflection, and gets you to get to know who you are yet again. And seeing it in black and white is a lot easier than having it in your head, where you have lots of other stories devaluing how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, and also I think obviously once you're at that stage where you're ready to potentially look for another partner, I think obviously having like a checklist of things that you look for, and obviously things that you don't look for. So what I'd say is, I mean, again, sort of judging, like sort of saying, oh, maybe this, but maybe especially for people with ADHD, that, for example, might get sort of blindsided by, so you can.
So I just had to open the door to him now, because he's outside my window. You might see him pop up, and he might show you his tail. And he's a beautiful Bengal, by the way, so you'll love him.
Oh wow! Yeah, I love cats.
Yeah.
I've got
so
two.
You go on.
So what I'd say is, especially for anyone, but obviously maybe especially for people with ADHD that maybe have hyperfocus and might get taken aside by someone that's love bombing them. You know, what I'd say is to have almost like a relationship audit really early on, so that you can sort of stand back and be like,
very good.
You know, this is what I need to check up on. And if you're not meeting those guidelines, then something's wrong.
This is a very good time for me to. I love the way you're segueing my questions. Do you have a copy of my questions or something? I'm sure I didn't send you that. I'm sure I didn't talk. Because what you said is fascinating, because you're absolutely right. We've talked about all the red flags that narcissistic abuse has, and what out to look for. But what are the green flags for us right now? What kind of things should we be looking for in terms of our checklist? I'm going to write this down, by the way.
Yeah, of course. So I think anything that's a green flag is obviously, again, it's if you're being yourself around them, like your authentic self.
Yeah.
Like obviously, if it's a first date, you're gonna maybe put on a slight front to make yourself look a little bit better. But if you can tell the joke that you're going to tell, if you can be the person you're going to be, if things like this, and you can tell them what your history, what's happened to you. Maybe not. You can choose your moments. Obviously, maybe not saying the first time you meet someone, but to open up and be honest with that person and not try to hide things from you. If you can be honest with that person, and in return they're still just as interested in you. Obviously, there could still be red flags there, but that's one green flag. Is that they obviously accept you for who you are.
Yeah.
And again, going back to what the red flag is, the total opposite side of that you don't find yourself trying to be anyone else. You don't find yourself basically not accepting those boundaries. Yeah. You stick to your guns, and you are who you are. And they're the main green flags and red flags. I always feel is if you can be yourself, that's the first thing that's most important.
Okay, so be yourself, be authentic. And in fact, I think even the first thing is you can be your authentic self when you've accepted who you are first.
Yeah.
And then you can say, this is me, like it or lump it.
Exactly, because in a lot of relationships, you mentioned when I spoke to someone the other day, and I'll try to say it differently because I don't want to do exactly what I spoke to them about. But basically, they wanted, like you said, they want that sort of hallmark family image. They want everyone to feel like that.
Yeah.
And it was making them feel, well, basically they weren't being their authentic self, and it was really affecting them. And I think it's a case of when you can be your authentic self, you're going to be so much happier because you're not having to put on a front. You're not having to basically, especially when people are coming in and out of relationships at the end and the beginning of new ones and things.
Yeah.
If you're so programmed to be a certain way. So in a past relationship, you might have had to be like this for the whole time. So you're really programmed to think that's what it's like to be in a relationship, and that's what I need to be like. And it can take time to break that sort of that mold of being, this is who I am when I'm in a relationship, to being, well, actually I just get to be the person I always am, the person who I am. And that's important as well, is people can drag their habits that they've been stuck in and sort of forced into, like trauma responses basically, into new relationships. And I think it's good to heal from all those trauma responses first before entering into a new one.
You have to. It's I say to everybody who is going through or is had a divorce is, don't think first about oh, I'm going to find somebody else who's better, or look at yourself first. Heal from that, because you've been fractured in so many different ways that you just need to heal yourself and become somebody so beautiful that no one else will have any choice but to be drawn to you. That's what you want. You want to be that person again. But obviously it does take time, and there's lots of, like, you guys at Clear Minds, they're always here to help, which is amazing. And I am going to put your website on the show notes so that people can get in touch if they feel so inclined to do so. My other question was this, actually. Where's my questions? Because I got so into this, where am I? Oh yes, that's it. What are the other red flags? We're on red flags. Sorry, I go off on different tangents, and I'm like, okay, where were we? Okay, green flags. So we've got acceptance, authentic self. What else do we need to be looking for?
Okay, red flags, I think. What I'd say is if they weaponize your guilt, that's never going to be good. So, and those red flags won't show up so strong at first. They'll show up in ways such as, like, you might have a plan with your friends, and they'll make you feel guilty because they really want to see you, which may be true. That's obviously, it could be true, but also it could just be a control thing that they want to have you to themselves, rather than. And if you then abandon your own boundaries, say, no, I'm going here with my friends, and they're making you feel guilty about it because they want to be with you, then that's quite a sincere red flag, because they're
So
going
a
to
green
make you feel
flag would
guilty.
just say, so a green flag would turn around and just say, yeah, have a great time. In fact, here's some money. Go and have a great time.
Yeah, well, yeah, they'd say, or they'd just say, yeah, have a lovely time. I can't wait to see you tomorrow or
Yeah.
after or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Or send pictures of what you're wearing.
Maybe. It depends. If they're blowing up your phone, that's probably a red flag while they
Okay.
know you with people.
All right,
Maybe.
maybe not then.
I
Okay,
mean,
well, obviously I have no idea of the green flags because all I go for is red flags anyway. So, okay, so they would not be as controlling or weaponizing your guilt. Anything
no.
else that we should know?
Red flags. Yeah, there's so many that I'm just trying to think of them on the spot now.
Well, I mean, I know you've listed them
There's,
all in your posts and what out to look for.
yeah,
So that's something that I'm
yeah,
definitely going to put forward. But
yeah.
okay, if you were to choose one more really important red flag, what would it be?
The most important red flag.
Because we've got,
I think
yeah,
it ties into this one, which is that they basically, I'd say jealousy early on is the most important. I'd say jealousy, and there's a difference between noticing jealousy and like a healed person will obviously say, they might say, I'm feeling a bit jealous, which is obviously a
yeah,
good, it's fine if you
that's
can be
healthy.
honest about,
Yeah,
if you can own it and say, I'm feeling a little bit jealous tonight about this, whatever, that's a healthy thing to do. But if they manipulate you around that jealousy to try to get what they want, I think that's something that in today's world in relationships, that's quite a big red flag, I'd say.
yeah. And the worst thing about that big red flag is that we never know when we're being manipulated until it's too late.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. I think manipulation and manipulation's the worst thing, because if you feel like someone's trying, you don't feel like it at first, because obviously you feel like someone's a good person, or you feel different things, and you feel like all the affection that they're giving you and different things, and they just, all these little red flags, at first they'll be much more subtle, so they will be sort of like backhanded. I'm trying to think of the word, right? They'll be,
Underlying almost.
yeah, they'll just be like very, it'll be much more, yeah, sort of backhanded small things, rather than later on when they'll be much more sort of passive aggressive or aggressive about different situations, while they're sort of like getting you to fall in love with them. They'll often be much more sort of like manipulative about the way they are. So the jealousy will be much more manipulative. You know, what you're doing, the like backhanded compliments, things like this that are just, it'll be much more hard to see basically at the
Yeah,
early stages.
it is harder to see. And I guess for me now, having seen what other people have been through, you don't really know when you're being manipulated until you're in it or you've come out of it, and then you realize how badly, like when you have to ask permission to do things. And it's like,
Yeah.
a great example was one of my friends came over to stay with me, and I knew that she'd been in an abusive narcissistic relationship and she'd come out of it, and she came to stay with me for a couple of days, and she was asking my permission for everything. Like
Yeah.
literally, is it okay if I use this mug? Is it okay if I boil some water for some kettle? And I'm like, woman, my house, your house, do what you
Yeah.
want. You don't have to tidy up. You don't have to sit there picking up rice, from the floor just because you've dropped it. And that for me was just like, don't
Yeah.
do it. Don't
Awful.
do it.
Yeah. Awful to see.
Yeah, it is awful to see. But, thankfully she's in a much better place now. So, happy for her.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good.
so what can narcissists also be deemed as neurodivergents? Or are they just totally
I mean,
perfect?
I guess they could. I don't really go that much into that side of it because I'm not a doctor. So when it comes to things like that, I don't really sort of diagnose and things.
No.
I guess they definitely could be, from
Yeah,
speaking
because it's
to
a kind
people
of,
that I've spoken to. Yeah, they definitely could be.
yeah.
I think obviously, especially sort of like on the spectrum at times, which could be, but generally narcissists aren't born; they're sort of raised. So whereas obviously a lot of these like neurodivergent things are obviously people are born with.
Yeah.
So I guess if I had to answer it, I don't want to sort of say that's an absolute fact, but I'd say, yeah, they
No,
could be, definitely.
a speculative no, or
Yeah.
speculative yes, rather.
Speculative, yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can see what you mean, but then even then, I mean, I see narcissism as a kind of almost personality disorder. And I guess personality disorders could be deemed as neurodivergence.
Yeah, yeah, I guess they could. I think the one thing to say though is when it comes to people that are actually diagnosed, is the people that are actually diagnosed have gone through that much sort of like therapy and different things to get diagnosed. Usually, the ones that are the least sort of malignant sort of people.
Yeah.
That I think there's a lot of people. There's people that talk about narcissism, and I think they often find that the people that are actually diagnosed are the ones that are not always the most narcissistic. They're the ones that are actually interested most in healing and go through the therapy. I think a lot of the worst sort of people, the worst narcissists, won't go through that process anyway. And they wouldn't be honest.
So, okay, so if a person came to you and said, I am a narcissist and I want to heal from that, would you be able to help them at Clear Minds? Or do you help the people who have been through?
So Clear Minds, we focus more on the victim side of things, but also Clear Minds is very general. We cover a lot of different subjects. So Clear Minds is a hypnotherapy, guided meditation, and breathwork app.
Okay.
So we work with obviously a number of therapists that make different things. So the hypnotherapy side of things, obviously, because a lot of people don't have either the ability, the accessibility to get to certain therapists. Hypnotherapy is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
And we have some amazing hypnotherapists, and I worked closely with one of them to build a pack all around recovering from narcissistic abuse. So that's one of the packages that we have there. But at Clear Minds, obviously, with my friend Alistair, the co-founder as well, he's done a lot of work around alcohol abuse and addiction. He's also working on a package for basically, we also have things for people with ADHD, but he's working on a package for people that are families of people that have had addicts and people stuck in addiction in the family, because it can be very tough on the families as well.
Yeah.
And he learned that obviously through what he put his family through at the time, and obviously he's healed from that now. He's totally different. But yeah, he's working on that as well. So at Clear Minds, we do hypnotherapy. We have over 300 hypnotherapy sessions, different breath work, guided meditation. I spoke to you earlier. I'll sign you up and let you give it a shot. But it's that's what we do there, and that's something that people have found very helpful. We've helped over 1 million people now worldwide.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's brilliant. I mean, I can't say I've helped 1 million people. I can probably check on my list. I've probably helped about 115. But hey, I've helped 115 people.
That's awesome.
That's 115 people in this world that have a better life because of me, and I'm very happy about it.
That's awesome. I mean, we started very small, and one of the parts of things in our mission is that we help people, and it's one mind at a time.
Yeah, one mind at a time, one task at a time, one day at a time. So what's next for you, Brandon, and Clear Minds, and Alistair? What's happening for you guys? Is there anything that we should know about? What's your plan?
Well, apart from the immediate future, and I'm going to Budapest on Sunday with my wife. Apart from that, which is meeting with friends, I'm writing a book at the moment. I'm in the process of that. That's something that I've been working on for a little while. It's something that I always wanted to do, and I'm taking my time with it. I'm not going to be rushing it. I've had a lot of people that I've had people ask about it. I've had a few people offers come to sort of basically get it done quicker, but I want to take my time with it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've done also is I'm working in something that I've always wanted to do is write a book, and I put little Easter eggs in there. So like little things and like things that you only know if you know. So like there's going to be 13 parts to it. My daughter was born on the 13th of October. She's actually going to be 13 this year, but loads of little things that I'm going to put in there that you won't know unless you know, and then I'll talk about them obviously on Instagram and different things like that.
Is the
I'm
book
going to
coming out in
YouTube.
October, by the way?
Yeah, I wish it was. That'd be very poetic. But no, it won't. But I don't think so. But and then other than that, I've also been approached to do more long form content as well, which is something that I've never really done because I've always been so busy with Clear Minds. But yeah, I'm going to be looking at doing some more long form content as well because I've really enjoyed the journey.
Yeah, for
So,
somebody who's nearing her 50s, what is long form content?
okay. So instead of like the reels that you see,
Yeah.
then obviously, the content, I put a lot of into the content, but
Yeah.
it'll be like YouTube videos basically.
Oh,
So
okay.
instead of it being a reel, it'll be like a more in-depth video.
Okay, so basically something like what I'm doing here.
Yeah, sort of like that. Maybe not live. I mean,
No.
maybe I'll do something live, but no, it'd be more like it'll be yeah, exactly like that, like longer form content. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
All right. So
correct.
I'm doing it already. That's all right then. I was like, why am I
Yeah.
not doing this? What is long form? Am I doing this already? Okay, I'm doing it already. That's all good. Brendan, I have to say, it has been an absolute pleasure. Oh my God, I was absolutely fixed. I was hanging on every single word that you said because most of it, in fact, all of it, has resonated with me. It's resonated with a few of my people who are messaging in. Some people had said, I'm just going to quickly read some of the comments. Well, one said, hello, beautiful. Obviously, they're going to say that. One said, nothing is ever their fault. It's always someone else's.
Ooh, I think you
Turn off for now.
muted for a second.
Okay, so I mean, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. I hope I didn't put you on the spot or give you
No,
any
no.
awkward questions or anything like that. That was not my intention if I had, so I apologize if I did. So I'm just going to
I
go
enjoyed
back
it.
to telling everybody that their takeaway tonight, being deeply emotional, doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're wired to connect, and that's okay. But connection without respect is a cage, not a relationship. So if it feels like love, but it leaves you feeling a bit confused, a bit drained, doubting your worth, it's not love, it's survival mode. And you deserve calm, you deserve clarity, and you absolutely deserve to take up space without being manipulated into shrinking. And Brandon from Clear Minds will show you exactly how to do that. So, guys, it has been an absolute pleasure doing this episode. I think we might need a part 2.
Yeah,
There might
sounds
be
good.
one because I'm sure when I post this, everyone's going to be like, what happened? Why was I not there? I need another one. I want more information. I might get loads and loads of questions as well. So guys, if you did the body doubling while you were listening to us drone on about narcissism and its red flags and green flags, I hope you managed to get what you wanted to get done in time. So whether that was washing the dishes, making dinner, or just chilling the hell out and listening to us, I hope that this was very, very useful and informative. And I hope to see you guys next week when we will be talking about nutrition part 2. We have got a part 2 coming up. So Brendan, yet again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry again for getting your name wrong. That's
No,
never going
that's
to happen
okay. Don't.
again. And
It's happened before.
yeah, I hope that you have a fantastic time in Budapest. I am so jealous of you right now. It's not fair. That's all I'm
Thank you
going to
very
say.
much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody for joining us. I hope you had a lovely time. Take care. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Brandon.